Okay, so you understand English, right? But actually speaking it out loud, well, that's a totally different story.
It is. It can feel like you have all of this knowledge, but you just can't quite unlock it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's all locked away inside and you don't have the key to get at it. I think we've all felt that at some point,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we're learning something new. So to help us unlock those speaking skills, today we're diving deep into this YouTube episode. It's from Learn English Podcast and it's called I Can Understand English, but I Can't Speak Very Appropriate.
Definitely.
So we're going to be looking at Leo and Gwen. They're the hosts of that YouTube channel, and we're going to get some strategies and mindset shifts from them. Really, the goal is to help us take all of that passive understanding we have of English and turn it into active and confident speaking. By the end, you'll have a roadmap. You'll have some practical tips that you can start using today to speak English more confidently. I know for me, when I was first learning a new language, oh man, I used to get so nervous about making mistakes. I would just not speak at all.
Yeah, I can see that.
I felt like everybody was judging me. Like
Yeah.
every word, my accent, everything.
Well, I think a lot of people feel that way. And it's interesting because that fear often comes from, I think, a misconception.
Oh,
You know, we tend to view language learning as a performance, like it's a test that we have to pass
yeah.
with like flying colors. But what if we changed our perspective? What if we viewed it more as like a journey of exploration, like discovering something new?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's when I finally was able to start making some progress. I realized I was the one holding myself back. I had to just embrace all those stumbles, all the
Yeah.
fumbles as part of the process. And everybody who speaks English fluently, they've been there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They didn't just magically wake up one day speaking perfect English.
No.
And Leo and Gwen, they make a really crucial point about practice, or rather the lack of practice,
Right.
being a major culprit. When we're listening,
Mm-hmm.
that's passive. It's like, you're watching a dance.
Mm-hmm.
You can appreciate the moves,
Mm-hmm.
the rhythm, the grace,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not actually using any of your muscles.
Right.
That's where you actually have to get on the dance floor and move.
You have to be engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like dancing, the more you practice, the more fluid you become and the more
Yeah.
confident you become.
Yes.
It's really building up that muscle memory, both physically, so how your mouth is forming the sounds, and mentally, how fast your brain can process and produce the language.
right.
So there's both of those sides to it.
I love that. And, they also bring up this concept of mental translation.
Yes.
And I know I've done this. This is where you're constantly translating everything from your native language to English
Yes.
in your head
Hmm.
before you even speak. It's like driving a car, but you're looking in the rearview mirror the whole time.
Yeah, it slows you down.
It makes everything so much less smooth.
Yeah, it's exhausting too.
Right.
Because you're constantly translating, and it prevents you from really immersing yourself in the rhythm and the flow of English. It's kind of like if you were trying to appreciate a really beautiful piece of music, but at the same time, you're trying to translate every note into a different scale.
Oh, yeah.
You'd miss the essence of it.
Totally. You lose
Yeah.
that natural flow.
Yeah.
And speaking of flow, another factor they highlight, I found this really interesting, is our thinking speed.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like your brain is trying to play catch up.
Yeah.
Trying to process the information and come up with an answer fast enough to keep up with the conversation.
Right.
And I think that's what leads to a lot of those awkward pauses and hesitations
Mm-hmm.
that can make us feel really self-conscious.
Right. And it's almost like when you're first learning how to juggle. At first you're focusing on catching each ball individually and it feels really clunky and awkward. But the more you practice, your brain starts to anticipate those movements
Right.
and your hands move more fluidly, more instinctively, and you kind of develop this sense of rhythm and flow.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we train our brains to do that? To have that conversational juggling act?
Well, Leo and Gwen, they offer this technique called shadowing.
Ooh, shadowing. I've heard of that. Have you tried that?
Yes, shadowing is super effective. What it involves is listening to a native speaker and trying to repeat what they're saying almost simultaneously. So you're matching their pace, their intonation, even their accent.
Right.
It's kind of like having a vocal sparring partner.
Oh,
They're pushing you to keep up and you're improving your reflexes in the process.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about some of the things that cause that gap between listening and speaking. Lack of practice, fear, mental translation, thinking speed. But how do we break free? How do we actually start speaking? Leo and Gwen have some great advice on overcoming that fear of speaking and finally breaking the silence.
This is where mindset really comes in.
Yes.
It's shifting that perspective from seeing mistakes as failures to seeing them as valuable feedback. Think about a child learning how to walk. They're going to stumble, they're going to fall, but they always get right back up. And each time they're a little bit stronger and a little bit steadier.
Yes. It's like learning to ride a bike.
Yes, exactly.
You're going to fall off a few times.
Yeah.
But every time you get back on, you're one step closer to actually riding with confidence.
Exactly.
And it's the same with speaking English. That stumbles those hesitations.
Yes.
It's all part of the process.
It is.
And in fact, they suggest starting small. Don't just jump right into, the deep end of the pool. Dip your toes in first. Start with those little bite-sized moments of speaking.
Exactly. And, practice with your friends, your
Yeah.
family members, even in front of a mirror. It might feel a little silly at first.
I know.
But the more you hear yourself speaking English, the more comfortable you'll become.
Yes. And the more confident.
And the more confident, exactly.
I remember when I first started, I used to practice ordering coffee in different ways, just to get comfortable with the sounds, the vocabulary.
Right.
I mean, it felt ridiculous.
But it helps.
It really did. It's all about building up that muscle memory and just getting those words flowing. Leo and Gwen even mentioned, actually practicing in front of a mirror.
Yeah.
That way you can not only hear yourself, but you can see your expressions and your body language.
Yeah, and that's a great way to become more aware of your nonverbal communication, which plays a huge role in how confident and fluent you appear to be.
Absolutely.
And also, don't underestimate the power of setting really achievable goals. It's about breaking down that big, overwhelming, I want to be fluent, into smaller, more manageable steps.
Yes. It's like training for a marathon.
Exactly.
You don't just go out and run 26 miles the first day.
No.
You start small.
Yeah.
You gradually increase as you build up that strength and endurance.
Exactly. Instead of aiming for perfection, focus on progress. Challenge yourself to learn 5 new words today, or try using a new grammar structure in conversation.
Right, and that's much less intimidating. Now, I know I still remember that feeling of, where do we even begin?
Yeah.
Like, how do I actually practice speaking when, I don't always have a partner available to talk to?
Right. Well, Leo and Gwen have some creative ideas for turning everyday life into an English classroom.
Oh, okay. Let's hear them.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm all for finding ways to make language learning fun and integrate it into our routines.
Yeah.
So let's dive into those. Okay, welcome back to our deep dive into the world of confident English speaking. We're continuing our exploration of some really useful tips from Leo and Gwen's Learn English podcast.
Yes. And we've discovered that, this process of turning passive understanding into active speaking, it's a journey.
It is.
That involves practice, mindset shifts, and a lot of self-compassion.
Absolutely. So in the last part, we were talking about some of the things that can really hinder our progress. Things like lack of practice, the fear that creeps in, that mental translation, and that feeling of our brain trying to catch up with how fast we need to be thinking.
Yes. And we also talked about some of the first steps we can take to overcome those hurdles, like starting small. Embracing those mistakes that we all make as stepping stones and setting achievable goals so we don't feel overwhelmed.
Absolutely. And today I really want to talk about one of the most powerful tools that we have, and that's the power of our minds. And I'm talking about visualization.
Yes.
I have to admit, I was a bit skeptical at first.
I could see that.
It sounded a little too new age for me.
Yes.
But I've been reading a lot about it and talking to people.
Yeah.
And I've realized how powerful it can be.
It's incredibly powerful. And, it's actually a technique used by, athletes, performers, entrepreneurs, people who have to perform under pressure.
Right.
And speaking a new language is definitely a performance.
It is.
And what visualization does is it helps you create a mental blueprint for success.
Okay, so instead of picturing ourselves fumbling or freezing up,
Yes.
we should be picturing ourselves speaking confidently and effortlessly.
Exactly. So you want to picture yourself in a specific situation, maybe ordering food in a restaurant, giving a presentation at work, or chatting with a native speaker at a party. Whatever it is for you, imagine yourself speaking clearly, using the vocabulary and grammar you've learned, and feeling that sense of accomplishment and connection.
Wow. It's like creating a mental movie.
Exactly. And here's the key. Engage all of your senses.
Oh.
So you don't just want to see yourself speaking. You want to hear your voice, feel the confidence in your posture. Even imagine those positive reactions that you're getting from the people you're talking to.
Right. So it's really about training our brains.
Yeah.
to believe that we can do it,
Exactly.
that speaking English fluently is not impossible.
Exactly. And the more you do this, the more those neural pathways in your brain associated with confident speaking will become strengthened.
You know, I've noticed that even just thinking about myself speaking confidently, I feel a little bit less anxious and more willing to just take a risk in conversations.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great to hear that. Remember, our minds are incredibly powerful tools.
Well,
And the
yeah.
more we feed them with those positive images and beliefs, the more likely we are to manifest those outcomes in reality.
I love it. Okay, visualization check. What other confidence-boosting strategies can we add?
Well, Leo and Gwen also talk about creating a positive and supportive learning environment for yourself.
Yes. I love that. This reminds me of, what we were talking about before with embracing those mistakes. It's hard to do that if we're constantly putting ourselves down or comparing ourselves to others.
Right, and remember, everybody learns at their own pace. It's about finding what works for you and surrounding yourself with people who encourage you and support you.
Yes. I remember when I was first learning English, I joined a language exchange group, and it was a game changer,
Oh, wow.
meeting all these people from all over the world who were also learning English. It created this incredible sense of camaraderie and support.
I bet. That must have been great.
It was. We were all in it together. We were cheering each other on and celebrating each other's successes.
That's fantastic. And that sense of community is so motivating. And it really empowers you.
It does.
And it reminds you that you're not alone.
Exactly. And, it made me realize that making mistakes was not just okay, but expected.
Yeah.
It was this safe space to experiment,
Yeah.
to try new things.
Yeah. Play with the language.
Exactly. And to get feedback without feeling judged.
Right. It's really about shifting from that fear-based approach to a more growth-based approach.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, what if I make a mistake, you can say, what can I learn from this experience?
Yes. That's such a powerful reframe.
It is.
And that reminds me of something else Leo and Gwen talked about, the importance of remembering why we started learning English in the first place.
Yes, connecting with that deeper motivation can be so powerful.
It is.
Especially when those feelings of doubt creep in.
Right, because it's so easy to get discouraged, So we need to have something that helps us stay focused.
Exactly. It's like having that internal compass that guides you
Yes.
when you feel lost or off course.
Yeah. For me, it was about opening up a whole new world of possibilities. Traveling, connecting with people from different cultures, even just being able to understand my favorite movies and music without subtitles.
That's fantastic. What about you? What was your initial spark?
I've always been fascinated by languages. It's like having access to different ways of thinking and perceiving the world. And English in particular felt like this key that could unlock so many doors.
Yeah.
For me personally and professionally.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
And when you connect with that deeper purpose, with that passion, it makes learning so much more enjoyable.
It does. It reminds us that language learning is not just about, memorizing a bunch of rules or vocabulary words.
Right.
It's about connecting, communicating, expanding our horizons.
Absolutely. So when you find yourself feeling stuck or discouraged, take a moment and reconnect with your why. Why did you start this journey? What are you hoping to achieve? What doors do you want to open?
Such powerful questions.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's just that simple shift in perspective that can really boost our confidence. So instead of focusing on what we haven't mastered yet, what if we focus on what we do know?
Yes, that's a great point.
It's so easy to get caught up in that feeling of, I'm not good enough yet,
Yeah.
or I still have so much to learn. But think about how far you've come. You've learned countless words.
Wow.
You've mastered grammar structures. You've probably had more conversations in English than you realize.
Exactly. And it's like climbing a mountain. We're so focused on reaching the peak
Right?
that we forget to appreciate the incredible view that we've already gained along the way.
That's so true.
And that appreciation, that gratitude for how far we've come, that can really boost your confidence and motivation.
It can. So let's take a moment to celebrate those victories, the big ones and the small ones. Maybe now you can understand your favorite TV show without subtitles, or maybe you feel more comfortable, expressing your opinions in English.
Exactly. Those are huge achievements.
Those are all things worth celebrating. So give yourself a pat on the back for all of that effort you're putting in.
Yes.
And just allow yourself to feel proud of how far you've come.
Yeah, and remember, confidence breeds confidence. So the more you acknowledge those successes, the more confident you'll become, and the more you'll be able to achieve.
It's true. It's a beautiful upward spiral.
It is.
And as we're reaching the end of part 2 of our deep dives,
Yeah.
I think this is a perfect place to pause and reflect on all of those amazing tips and strategies we've been discussing. Welcome back to our final part of this deep dive into confident English speaking.
Yes. It's been so interesting exploring all the different ways we can bridge that gap between understanding and speaking English fluently.
We've gotten so many great insights from Leo and Gwen's Learn English podcast so far.
From those practical techniques like shadowing and visualization to those mindset shifts, like embracing mistakes and really celebrating each step of the journey.
I love all of those. And in this last part, I really want to focus on how we can take everything we've learned and actually use it to unleash that inner confident English speaker. You know, we all have that inside.
Right. It's like having all the pieces of the puzzle, and now we just need to put them together to reveal the big picture.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? Leo and Gwen emphasize a point that I think is so crucial for success at this stage.
Yeah.
And that is consistency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not about, cramming or trying to learn everything overnight. It's really about making English a part of your daily life,
Right.
even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
I love that. It's like those tiny habits that we build up over time.
Exactly.
You know, like brushing our teeth, taking a walk, those little things that become second nature and end up having a huge impact in the long run.
Exactly. So how do we incorporate English practice into our routines without it feeling like a chore, like just another thing we have to do?
Right. Well, one strategy that I really liked was finding opportunities to use English in real-world situations.
Yes.
So that could be anything from joining a conversation group like I did,
Or,
or volunteering at an organization, where you can actually interact with English speakers.
right, or even just striking up a conversation with someone at your local coffee shop.
Yes, exactly.
Just creating those mini immersion experiences that push you a little bit outside of your comfort zone and challenge you to use your English in a spontaneous, authentic way.
I love that. And even if we don't live in an English-speaking country, there are so many ways to immerse ourselves
Oh, absolutely.
at home.
Think about all the resources we have available. Movies, TV shows, music, podcasts, books, online articles. I mean, it's really endless. There's so much out there.
There really is. It's like this 2047 English channel.
Exactly. And the more you expose yourself to the language, the more natural it will start to feel.
And you know something else they mentioned is the importance of personalizing your learning experience. I think this is key for staying motivated and engaged.
It is. It is. It's about finding the resources and activities that actually light you up, that make you excited to learn.
Yes. So, if you love food. Immerse yourself in English language cooking shows or recipe blogs. If you're into history, explore documentaries. Or historical novels, if you're passionate about music. Listen to English language podcasts and interviews with your favorite artists.
Yeah, exactly. It's about making English a part of your existing interests, your passions, not some separate thing that feels forced.
Right. It's like weaving English into the tapestry of your life,
Hmm.
finding those threads that connect with who you already are and what you already love.
Yeah, beautiful. And, personalization also applies to your goals. So what do you actually envision yourself doing with your English skills? Do you want to travel the world, connect with people from different cultures, advance in your career?
Right. Those are all great goals, and having that clear vision, that North Star, can be so motivating.
It can, especially when those moments of doubt creep in. It's like having that compass that guides you back on track.
Yeah, because let's be real. Learning a language can be challenging.
It can be.
There are going to be days where it feels like you're not making any progress. Days where you just want to give up.
Yes, but that's normal.
It is.
Everyone goes through that. It's part of the process.
Absolutely.
What matters is how you respond to those challenges. And that's where self-compassion comes in.
Oh, yes. We need to be kind to ourselves.
Exactly. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a friend who's struggling with something.
Yeah. It's acknowledging that we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. And it's okay to have those bad days.
It is. And Leo and Gwen also encourage us to celebrate every victory, no matter how small it might seem.
Yes.
Did you finally master that tricky grammar rule that was giving you trouble? Did you have a conversation with a native speaker and not freeze up? Did you understand a whole song without having to look up the lyrics? Those are all things to celebrate.
They really are. It's so important to recognize and acknowledge our progress, instead of always focusing on what we haven't accomplished yet.
Exactly.
So we need to give ourselves a pat on the back for all the effort that we're putting in and just allow ourselves to feel proud of how far we've come.
Yes. And remember, Confidence breeds confidence. So the more you acknowledge those successes, the more confident you'll become, and the more you'll be able to achieve.
That's so true. It's that beautiful upward spiral.
It is.
And as we wrap up our deep dive into confident English speaking, let's just take a moment to recap those key takeaways.
Okay. Confidence is a skill.
Yes,
It's not a personality trait.
I love that.
It's something that we can all develop and strengthen through practice, perseverance, and a positive mindset.
Absolutely. Embrace those mistakes, seek out those supportive learning environments, and personalize your journey so it aligns with your interests and your passions.
Exactly. And most importantly, believe in yourself. Trust that you can do this. You can achieve fluency and speak English with confidence and grace.
You can. And remember, you're not alone. There's this whole community of language learners out there, and we're all cheering each other on every step of the way.
We are. So what's one small action you can take today to move closer to your goal? Maybe it's watching a short English video, listening to a podcast, practicing a few new words.
Whatever it is, just take action. No matter how small it might seem, each step, no matter how tiny, brings you closer to that fluency and confidence.
It does. We believe in you. Happy speaking.
Happy speaking, everyone.